I'll just put that there. So I am going to ask you to start by helping me get oriented to your early family situation, just in terms of who was living at home and your siblings, stuff like that.
Well, I lived with my mother and father and older sister. And my mother had had a previous marriage, and my sister was from that marriage. And at the time, I had no idea that there were any behavioural issues with her. But there was a lot of energy in the house, with my sister ranting and behaving in unexpected ways. And my parents used to fight and throw things at each other and yell, and yes, so I was very aware of that. And that was when I was before I was 5. I have very strong memories of that.
So a lot of reactivity, a lot of emotionality, but very uncontained.
Yes.
Is what I'm hearing you say there.
Yes, and my mother was, well, both of my parents were reactive, but I would say my father's anger was more controlled than my mother's. Most of the time he was very withdrawn. He would sit as I am now. That whenever I sit like this, I think of him.
Yes.
This is a typical...
It's contained.
Yes. Yeah. But there was a limit to his patience, and he would just blow up, and that was quite frightening when that happens.
So your predominant, like, is there a metaphor or an image that comes to you to describe, if you think back to that time, that comes to you about the feeling tone of that time for you? Some adjectives maybe?
Chaotic.
Yeah.
Wild. I guess a lot of my images of that time are coloured by stories that other people have told me subsequently about their reflections of our life as a family. Before my parents moved from Norfolk Island, where I was born,
Oh, okay.
they were known as the Bohemians of the island.
Right.
They had both run away from home, effectively, and married out of wedlock. I was born before they were married.
Yeah.
I think I was the reason they married. And they had Nadia on board. And so they were described as quite wild.
Yeah.
And there's one scene that I suppose does symbolise a bit, if you like, the nature of the whole scene, and that is, apparently they set fire to a Norfolk Island pine once at a party.
Oh, okay.
They had a beachside party with a bunch of people, and they set this tree alight. And that, to me, it's just such a powerful image.
Very powerful, isn't it? All that fire and oxygen combining into a conflagration.
Yes, but I don't consciously remember that Norfolk Island experience, because I think I was only very young when they moved from there to Christchurch, New Zealand.
But I guess everything else you're describing does describe a system with too much energy in it that couldn't be safely discharged.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was like they couldn't be contained anywhere.
Yeah.
Banished to this little island,
Yeah.
or banished themselves to this little island.
And do you remember how you felt as a child in the midst of all that? Are there any feelings?
Well, there is one, I guess 2 incidences that lots really, but one that immediately comes to mind is sitting on the toilet, and I was before 5 because I arrived in Melbourne on my 5th birthday
Right.
from Christchurch. So I remember sitting on the toilet and I was wearing a pair of hand knitted socks that I suspect my mother made, or perhaps my grandmother.
Mm.
I knew she knitted.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of my mother really knitting, but anyway, I had these socks on. And I'd stuffed one of the socks in the door because I didn't want anyone to come in.
Right.
And with the other sock was on my foot, I just started picking away at the toe and unravelled it and became totally fascinated with unpeeling this sock, if you like, from my foot and exposing my foot. So I think that's quite, just now remembering and thinking about that, that was one of the ways I coped with the situation. I'd focus on something else. I'd get totally absorbed in something physical.
And would you say that was an act of exploration then, rather than us sort of picking at something? It was just, as you said, an absorption.
Yeah, I was
into-
totally curious. And I remember distinctly how that, when wool has been knitted for a long time, it's all wiggly.
Yes.
And I was
yes.
fascinated by that, and the colours
Yeah.
and the feeling
yeah.
of the wool
yeah.
coming off my skin.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful sort
Yeah.
of little world that I was part of.
So that curiosity, obviously, you came into this world with that, and it, the curiosity to see what's underneath and to see what's inside, and
Yeah.
that was there when you were little, and
Yes,
it's
definitely.
obviously very strong now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I've always been an observer
And,
of people and things.
yeah.
And sometimes I've been accused of being quite cold and unemotional.
Right. But by any of those early childhood figures, your family, or more later?
Later.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And would you say that those experiences, being, say, up to 10 years old, have you felt that reverberate throughout your life? Have you felt aspects of what you learned about yourself and how the world is in that rather chaotic environment? Have you felt that has informed the way you've moved out into the world from that time?
I'm just going to stop and check the camera's rolling, and then I might get you to ask me that again, because that
Yeah.
was very long,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
don't want to lose that.